Hello, friends. If you're curious about the movie Sicario, 2015, you're in the perfect place. Don't forget to give this video a quick like, it really helps us out. And if you're new here, hit subscribe to stay updated on all the latest movie deep dives. Let's jump right in. Sicario, a film that grips you from the very first moment and doesn't let go. Directed by Denis Villeneuve, this 2015 crime thriller is a tense, atmospheric journey into the heart of the drug war between the United States and Mexico. Featuring stellar performances from Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro, and Josh Brolin, Sicario delves deep into the gray areas of morality, justice, and the devastating human consequences of the fight against drug cartels. The movie opens with a violent raid in a house filled with the horrors of the drug trade, setting the stage for a narrative that refuses to give easy answers. Emily Blunt stars as Kate Macer, a driven FBI agent who specializes in kidnapping cases. When her team discovers a house full of bodies, she is thrust into a covert operation led by Matt Graver, Josh Brolin, a shady government official. What starts as a seemingly straightforward mission to capture the head of a Mexican cartel soon spirals into a moral quagmire, leaving Kate questioning the legality and ethics of the methods used in the war on drugs. From the very beginning, we feel the weight of Kate's world on her shoulders. She's just a regular, hard-working agent who believes in the justice system, until it becomes clear that the rules are far murkier when it comes to dealing with the immense power and corruption of the drug trade. Matt and his mysterious associate, Alejandro, Benicio del Toro, guide Kate through a brutal and dangerous world where right and wrong aren't so clearly defined. Alejandro, in particular, stands out as a shadowy, almost mythical figure with a haunting personal agenda of his own, and his relationship with Kate is fraught with tension, mystery, and subtle power plays. He seems to know far more than he's letting on, and as Kate digs deeper into the operation, she begins to realize how little control she actually has in this complex, deadly world. At the core of Sicario is not just the intense action and terrifying world of the cartels, but a searing critique of the war on drugs, the blurred lines of law enforcement, and the human cost of these high-stakes operations. We're not just watching the consequences of criminal actions unfold on screen, we're witnessing how these operations affect those caught in the middle, like Kate, and how they may lose their sense of self in the process. As we journey deeper into this dark world, we are confronted with some of the film's key elements. For one, Villeneuve's direction is both understated and incredibly effective. He doesn't rely on bombastic scenes to create tension. Instead, it's in the quiet moments that the horror of the situation reveals itself. The cinematography by Roger Deakins is absolutely stunning. His use of wide shots and tight, claustrophobic frames creates a sense of unease that lingers throughout the movie. And then there's the hauntingly evocative score by Johann Johansson, which builds the tension in the film, turning the air thick with suspense, especially during the high-stakes action scenes. As the film progresses, we see Kate's descent into a moral abyss. Her naivety is stripped away, layer by layer, as she comes face to face with the truth of the operation and the people pulling the strings behind the scenes. What started as a chance to do good transforms into a nightmarish situation where she realizes that, in the world of international drug cartels, there's no such thing as clear-cut justice. Every choice Kate makes comes with a heavy price, and with Alejandro's unpredictable presence, she's pushed to question her own values, her career, and the very essence of what she's fighting for. But this film isn't just about Kate's moral dilemma, it's also about the haunting journey of Alejandro. Played by Benicio del Toro in one of his most chilling performances, Alejandro's backstory gradually unravels, revealing the dark and personal reasons behind his involvement in the mission. As he reveals his tragic past, the audience's perception of him shifts. Is he a man seeking vengeance, a mercenary doing his job, or something even more complex? Alejandro's character raises unsettling questions about justice and revenge, and how the line between the two becomes increasingly blurred the deeper you venture into this violent world. In the world of Sicario, there is no room for black and white morality, and no one walks away unscathed. The stakes get higher as the operation progresses, leading to several thrilling edge-of-your-seat moments, like a harrowing border crossing that sends Kate into a state of shock. But what really pulls you in are the smaller, quieter moments, when the tension between characters becomes almost unbearable. Whether it's a chilling stare from Alejandro or a simple but ominous line of dialogue from Matt, the film constantly reminds us that the greatest threats aren't always from the cartel itself. They lie within the dark moral choices that those fighting the war are forced to make. Sicario doesn't just paint a grim picture of the drug trade, it also portrays the psychological toll of working within such an ethically murky system. As Kate is faced with more shocking realities, she's forced to reckon with the true nature of the operation she's a part of. Her initial excitement and sense of justice evolve into disillusionment and frustration, and as the tension between her and Alejandro builds, it's clear that neither of them will emerge unchanged from this mission. The final twist in the film leaves the audience reeling. Without giving away too much, let's just say that Kate's journey is not just about confronting the drug cartels. It's about confronting the darker side of herself and the terrifying realization that the line between good and evil is often much thinner than we'd like to believe. By the time the film draws to a close, the moral and emotional toll on Kate, Alejandro, and even Matt is clear. Sicario isn't just an action thriller. It's a psychological exploration of the consequences of a war that isn't just fought on the ground, but within the souls of those who fight it. It leaves us with an unsettling, open-ended question. In a world where justice is elusive, what are we willing to sacrifice in its pursuit? To sum it all up, Sicario is an unflinching, visceral examination of the murky world of the war on drugs, filled with incredible performances, a haunting atmosphere, and a narrative that doesn't shy away from the harshest truths. With its complex characters, thrilling action, and morally ambiguous storyline, the film keeps you questioning what's truly at stake, and whether it's ever possible to come out on top in such a dangerous, high-stakes game. It's a film that challenges its audience to think deeply about the consequences of the choices we make and the lines we're willing to cross in the pursuit of justice. And trust me, there's so much more to uncover. If you haven't seen Sicario yet, I highly recommend you watch it for yourself. You won't want to miss how the story unfolds and the powerful emotional and moral questions it leaves you with. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of Sicario, 2015, and don't forget to subscribe for more movie deep dives like this one. We've got many more exciting films to explore together, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Sicario opens with a jarring and intense sequence. A team of FBI agents, including Kate Macer, Emily Blunt, raid a house in Phoenix, Arizona, where a suspected drug cartel is hiding out. As the team enters, they find a grisly sight, a house full of decomposing bodies concealed within the walls. This horrifying discovery sets the tone for what will be an unrelenting, morally complex journey into the world of drug cartels, law enforcement, and the blurry line between justice and vengeance. Kate, a determined and idealistic FBI agent, is shocked by what she's witnessed. She is someone who has spent her career trying to save lives, rescuing victims of kidnappings and fighting crime. But this raid shows her that the war on drugs is not just a matter of law enforcement. It is a brutal, bloody fight that has left countless lives destroyed. Her idealistic views begin to crack as the scale of the violence and corruption becomes undeniable. As she grapples with the brutal reality of the cartels, she is pulled into an even darker and more dangerous world by a mysterious government official named Matt Graver, Josh Brolin. He works for a task force that deals with the cartels, but their methods are unconventional and aggressive. After the raid, Kate is approached by Matt, who asks her to join a covert operation to bring down the leaders of the Mexican drug cartels. He tells her that her role will be crucial, and she'll be working with a mysterious operative, Alejandro, Benicio del Toro. Initially skeptical about the assignment, Kate's sense of duty prevails, and she agrees to join the operation, despite the growing feeling that something isn't quite right. From the moment she steps into this new world, she's hit with an overwhelming sense of unease. The rules she's always followed as a law enforcement agent suddenly don't seem to apply. The operation begins with a covert mission across the U.S.-Mexico border. Kate, Matt, Alejandro, and their team drive to a remote location where they plan to intercept a high-ranking member of a cartel. As they cross the border, Kate begins to sense that something is off. The situation is far more complex and murky than she anticipated, and the team's behavior seems increasingly suspicious. It becomes clear that the operation isn't just about capturing criminals, it's about getting results by any means necessary. The tension escalates when the team executes a military-style ambush on a convoy of cartel members. Alejandro and Matt are calm and controlled, while Kate is visibly rattled by the violence. The raid is chaotic and ruthless, highlighting the brutality of the situation. But what Kate doesn't know yet is that the operation isn't about simply taking down drug lords. It's a much darker, more personal mission for Alejandro. He is a man with a hidden agenda, a tragic past, and a thirst for revenge against the cartel. He isn't just in it for justice. He is driven by something much deeper. As the team pushes further into Mexico, Kate finds herself increasingly isolated and disillusioned. She questions the legality of the methods being employed, but Matt and Alejandro remain tight-lipped, keeping her in the dark about the true nature of the operation. The more she observes, the more Kate begins to realize that the line between good and evil is not so easily drawn in the world of cartel warfare. Alejandro, in particular, stands out as a disturbing, almost otherworldly figure. His cold, calculated demeanor and cryptic remarks leave Kate uneasy, and she begins to wonder just who he really is and what his true motivations are. The tension reaches a boiling point when the team is ordered to go after a powerful cartel leader named Fausto Alarcón. This mission takes the group deeper into Mexico, where they encounter even more dangerous criminals and experience terrifying close calls. Along the way, Kate struggles to reconcile the morality of their actions with the results they're achieving. The team's methods grow increasingly extreme, and Kate is forced to confront her own beliefs. What's at stake here isn't just the fight against the cartels, it's the integrity of the law and the personal toll it's taking on Kate. Kate's discomfort grows as the team moves forward with a plan to cross into the cartel's territory and retrieve a key player in the organization. It's here that the cracks in the operation begin to widen. During a high-risk mission in a cartel-run tunnel under the border, the stakes are raised, and the tension is unbearable. The operation turns violent, and Kate finds herself facing choices that challenge her sense of right and wrong. She is constantly left in the dark about key decisions being made by Matt and Alejandro, and the further she goes, the more she realizes that she is part of a much larger, more dangerous game. As the film's first half unfolds, we watch Kate's transformation. She is forced to confront the chilling reality of the drug war, an unforgiving, high-stakes world where the lines between justice and revenge blur. Her relationship with Alejandro becomes increasingly strained as she begins to question not just his methods, but his motives. Alejandro's mysterious past comes to light, revealing his personal vendetta against the cartel that adds even more complexity to the already murky mission. Through the stunning cinematography of Roger Deakins, we are shown not just the violence and chaos of the cartel wars but also the stark, desolate beauty of the landscapes where these operations unfold. The sweeping desert vistas, the dark, rain-soaked streets of Mexico, and the sterile, cold corridors of law enforcement offices are all portrayed with haunting beauty, enhancing the film's unsettling atmosphere. The visual choices reflect the moral decay that pervades the characters' actions, amplifying the sense that, as much as Kate wants to believe she is fighting for justice, the war on drugs has no easy answers. The film's score by Johan Johansson also contributes to the rising tension. The music is haunting and unsettling, perfectly complementing the film's growing sense of dread. Every shot, every sequence, builds toward a mounting climax that leaves Kate, along with the audience, wondering just how deep this rabbit hole goes. It's a slow burn, with suspense building not just through action but through the subtle atmospheric details that bring the world of Sicario to life. As the first half of the movie draws to a close, Kate is irrevocably changed. She has gone from a naive, idealistic agent to someone who is grappling with the true cost of the war on drugs. She's been thrust into a world where the lines between law enforcement and criminal behavior have become indistinguishable. She's seen the horrors of the drug trade firsthand, but more than that, she's seen the devastating impact of unchecked power and revenge on the people fighting in this war, especially Alejandro, whose personal vendetta against the cartels is starting to become clearer, but no less unsettling. This is the moment where Kate starts to realize the full scope of the operation she's been pulled into, and it's not pretty. As the film's momentum continues to build, the stakes grow higher, and Kate's moral compass is put to the ultimate test. What seemed like a straightforward mission to bring down a drug cartel has transformed into something much darker and more dangerous. And as the first half of Sicario closes, Kate is left with the haunting realization that there may be no turning back from the choices she's made. Sicario is not just a thriller about drugs and violence. It's an exploration of the human cost of war, the toll it takes on those who fight it, and the difficult choices that shape the world around us. As Kate faces increasingly difficult moral dilemmas, the audience is left to wonder, in a world as corrupt and brutal as this, is there ever truly a right answer? The first half of the film sets the stage for what promises to be an unforgettable journey, one where the boundaries between good and evil are constantly shifting, and where the price of justice may be far higher than anyone is willing to pay. The story of Sicario continues with Kate Macer increasingly becoming disillusioned with the operation she's been drawn into. As the brutal realities of the drug war unravel before her eyes, she finds herself questioning everything, from the legitimacy of the mission to the ethics of the men she's working with. The further into Mexico they go, the more she becomes aware of the brutal power plays at work and how far her superiors are willing to go to gain the upper hand. The team heads deeper into cartel territory, making their way toward a high-stakes mission that involves capturing one of the key figures in the Mexican drug trade, a man named Fausto Alarcón. Kate's discomfort with the methods of the task force only grows as they move forward. She is no longer in the dark about the darker motivations behind the operation, but her concerns go unaddressed. Matt Graver, the seemingly laid-back, yet ruthlessly efficient government official, continues to play his cards close to his chest, and Alejandro, the enigmatic hitman, remains even more of a mystery. Every decision they make seems morally ambiguous, but it is clear that their goal is one thing: to dismantle the cartel at any cost. During an intense confrontation in a Mexican border city, Kate finds herself drawn deeper into a world where the lines between justice and revenge are blurred. Matt and Alejandro's motives are becoming clearer, but their ruthless actions leave Kate questioning whether the cartel's defeat justifies the destruction of everything she holds dear as a law enforcement officer. The violence she's witnessed has already left a mark on her, but now she is faced with something more personal. As Alejandro's true role in the operation begins to surface, Kate finds herself torn between the professional duty that brought her here and the moral conflict that's taking hold of her. Alejandro's role is not merely that of a hired gun. He has his own deeply personal vendetta against the cartels. The death of his family at the hands of the drug trade has made him cold and calculating. His quest for vengeance becomes evident as the story progresses, and it's soon clear that his motives go far beyond the idea of justice or law. He is hunting the men responsible for destroying his life, and his ruthless pursuit of them pushes Kate to her breaking point. As she realizes that Alejandro's personal agenda is dictating the operation, she is forced to confront the reality that the very people she's working with are operating under an entirely different set of rules than she ever expected. The tension hits a fever pitch when the team infiltrates a heavily guarded compound belonging to a cartel boss. What begins as a military operation soon devolves into an increasingly unpredictable and violent series of events. As Kate becomes more involved, her disillusionment grows. She watches as her fellow operatives make decisions that cross moral and legal lines, and she starts to feel as though the world she's known is slipping away from her. She is no longer the idealistic law enforcement officer she once was. The lines between good and evil, right and wrong, have blurred beyond recognition. And in the midst of this chaos, Alejandro's actions become more unsettling. During a particularly harrowing encounter with cartel members, Kate is forced to act against her instincts. She begins to realize that the entire operation has been designed to force the cartels to turn on each other in a deadly game of manipulation. Alejandro's influence over the mission grows stronger, and Kate is left with the horrifying realization that this operation, under the guise of law enforcement, is about something else entirely. The boundaries between justice and vengeance, law enforcement and criminal behavior, begin to collapse. But as things escalate, the true cost of this dark mission becomes apparent. Kate watches as her fellow agents and Alejandro push past any semblance of morality. In one chilling moment, she finds herself witnessing an execution that feels more like an act of revenge than a necessary step in a larger mission. Alejandro's methods, ruthless and cold, shake Kate to her core. She's no longer certain whether this mission is about justice or just a manipulation of power. The film's pacing intensifies as the team's efforts to neutralize the cartel culminate in a bloody and violent showdown. Tension builds with every passing moment, as Kate realizes that she has become complicit in a system that operates with little regard for ethical boundaries. The film's cinematography, once haunting and beautiful, becomes stark and foreboding as the stakes rise. The score, composed by Johan Johansson, continues to heighten the suspense, capturing the growing sense of dread and inevitability. The final act of Sicario sees Kate facing a devastating truth about the cost of the operation. Alejandro's cold and calculating persona is revealed in its entirety, and Kate's moral compass is shattered. She's forced to reckon with the fact that she was never truly part of the mission. She was a pawn in a larger, more sinister game. Alejandro, driven by a thirst for vengeance, has manipulated Kate and the entire operation to fulfill his own personal agenda. In the end, it's clear that the war on drugs isn't about justice. It's about power, revenge, and the consequences of unchecked violence. In the final confrontation, Kate is left to reckon with her role in this mission. Her idealism has been eroded, and she is no longer the woman who entered this operation with hopes of making a difference. The realization that she has been used as a pawn is crushing. The operation ends with Kate's forced return to the U.S., but the emotional and psychological toll it's taken on her is irreversible. She is no longer the same person who began this journey, and the final image of her driving away from the border symbolizes her transformation. Her disillusionment with the system she once believed in is now complete. The film ends on a chilling note, with Alejandro's role as the true force behind the operation now fully revealed. His actions, though morally questionable, were driven by a personal vendetta against the cartels. The movie leaves the audience questioning the ethics of his methods, as well as the broader implications of the war on drugs. Kate's journey, from an idealistic agent to a disillusioned woman, reflects the moral complexity of the world she's been thrust into, and the final scene suggests that, in this brutal and unforgiving world, there are no easy answers. Sicario concludes with a stark reminder of the blurred lines between justice and revenge, and the devastating impact of the war on drugs. Kate Macer may have started this journey with a sense of purpose and righteousness, but by the end, she finds herself utterly changed. Her ideals shattered, her sense of right and wrong irrevocably altered. The film's resolution is haunting, leaving us with an uneasy feeling that, in the world of law enforcement and the drug cartels, victory is often a hollow, costly thing. In Sicario, the characters are not merely individuals in a narrative but vessels through which the film explores the moral and ethical complexities of the war on drugs. The film's primary characters are profoundly shaped by their pasts and their experiences within the brutal environment they navigate. Each of them is defined by a delicate balance between law, justice, personal morality, and the often murky territory in between. Through them, the film examines questions of duty, justice, and the cost of doing what's necessary in a world where the lines between right and wrong are obscured. Kate Macer, portrayed by Emily Blunt, is the heart of the story, representing the audience's perspective on the unfolding events. At the beginning of the film, Kate is an idealistic FBI agent, dedicated to fighting the drug cartels and upholding the law. She's portrayed as competent, strong-willed, and deeply committed to her role in enforcing justice. However, her world begins to unravel as she is pulled into a task force that operates under entirely different rules. Initially, Kate is in the dark about the real motives of the mission, seeing it as a chance to take down the cartels. She believes in the importance of following the law and adhering to ethical standards, even in the face of overwhelming odds. However, her sense of right and wrong quickly comes into question as she encounters the morally ambiguous decisions of those around her. Blunt's performance as Kate is quietly powerful. She does an excellent job of portraying a woman who begins with a clear moral compass, only to find herself thrown into a world where that compass is of little use. As Kate is pushed to the limits of her endurance, both physically and emotionally, blunt conveys her character's internal conflict without ever overtly stating it. The gradual erosion of Kate's idealism is a slow burn, and the actress brings depth to this process, showing us a woman who is forced to reckon with the consequences of her choices, and of being a part of a system that operates outside her understanding of justice. Then there's Matt Graver, played by Josh Brolin, whose character is the embodiment of the pragmatism and cold efficiency that the mission demands. Graver is a government operative with little regard for the moral gray areas that Kate clings to. He's a man who operates in a world of shades of gray, where the end justifies the means. Brolin's portrayal of Graver is fascinating because it showcases a character who is never truly evil, but whose actions speak volumes about his willingness to do whatever it takes. Matt is someone who has lived through the wars, the drug wars, the conflicts between nations, and he has learned that getting the job done requires a certain ruthlessness. His job, he believes, is to create the conditions for success, regardless of the costs. The character's easygoing demeanor masks a mind that is calculating and dangerous, someone who would never hesitate to take a life if it meant getting closer to his goal. Graver's relationship with Kate is complex. On the surface, he is a mentor figure, but it quickly becomes clear that his motives are far more self-serving. Throughout the film, he acts as a kind of guide to Kate, teaching her the harsh realities of the world they're operating in. However, his teaching often feels like manipulation, as he steers Kate into situations that contradict her sense of justice. He is willing to exploit her sense of right and wrong for the greater good, even though that greater good may be questionable at best. Graver's character is a study in utilitarianism, a belief that the consequences of actions justify the means, no matter how morally or ethically dubious those actions might be. Alejandro, played by Benicio del Toro, is by far the most enigmatic and morally ambiguous character in Sicario. From the moment he enters the scene, there is an air of mystery about him. Alejandro is introduced as a Mexican consultant to the task force, a man who's seen enough violence and corruption to be both terrifying and compelling. His presence in the film is unsettling, partly because of Del Toro's commanding performance and partly because of the character's hidden motivations. Unlike Kate, who is still idealistic and trying to reconcile her moral beliefs with the violent world she's entered, Alejandro is fully aware of the darkness around him. In fact, he is someone who thrives in it. At first, Alejandro appears to be nothing more than a hardened operative, someone with a brutal efficiency that could prove useful to the task force. However, as the story unfolds, it's revealed that Alejandro's actions are driven by something far deeper and more personal. His family was killed by a cartel, and the mission that Kate and the others are part of is nothing short of personal vengeance for him. Alejandro's quest for justice is not about upholding the law or following a moral code. It's about exacting revenge for the pain he's endured. His personal vendetta against the cartel leaders motivates every action he takes, and he will stop at nothing to fulfill it. Del Toro's portrayal of Alejandro is chilling, not just because of the character's cold demeanor, but because of the moral ambiguity he embodies. He is both a hero and a villain, a man who has suffered deeply and is willing to become a monster in order to right the wrongs that have been done to him. What makes Alejandro so compelling is the complexity of his emotions. While he is ruthless and dangerous, we also see glimpses of the man he was before the violence and tragedy tore apart his life. His calculated cruelty towards the cartels is, in many ways, his way of trying to regain control over a world that has long since become unrecognizable to him. Finally, the cartel figures that populate the film, specifically the men involved in the drug trade, are mostly faceless characters. However, the presence of these figures is felt throughout the film. In the scenes where we encounter them directly, there is a palpable sense of menace that looms over the operation. These characters serve as a reminder of the true stakes of the war on drugs, people willing to do anything, even murder, to protect their empires. The film suggests that these figures are not so different from the operatives they're up against. While Kate, Graver, and Alejandro may wear the masks of law enforcement, they all engage in similar acts of violence and manipulation. The film doesn't give us a clear villain, because it's more interested in showing the moral and ethical decay that affects all of the characters involved. What Sicario does so well is show the psychological toll of the war on drugs, not just on the people who are directly involved in it, but on those who are caught in its orbit. Kate, Graver, and Alejandro are all products of their circumstances, shaped by the violence and corruption that surrounds them. Their motivations and actions reveal how easily one can become desensitized to brutality, and how quickly the lines between good and evil, justice and vengeance, can be crossed. The film leaves us questioning what it means to be on the right side of the law, and whether such distinctions matter in a world where everyone is tainted by violence and betrayal. In the end, Sicario is as much about the emotional and psychological impact of the characters as it is about the plot itself. Each character is tested in ways that force them to confront their own moral boundaries, and in doing so, the film offers a stark commentary on the true nature of the war on drugs. It's a brutal, unforgiving world, and the people who inhabit it are often no better than the criminals they pursue. What makes the film so compelling is its refusal to offer easy answers. Instead, it presents a nuanced, layered exploration of the human condition and the moral complexities that arise when we are forced to confront the darkest corners of our world. While Sicario, 2015, is a critically acclaimed film that has left a lasting impression on audiences, the process behind its making is equally fascinating. From the script to the set, the film's production was a carefully crafted journey that involved many unique and interesting behind-the-scenes occurrences. Here are some of the strangest and most intriguing facts about the making of Sicario that reveal just how much effort, creativity, and sometimes sheer luck went into crafting such a powerful film. 1. The realism of the cinematography. One of the most distinctive elements of Sicario is its cinematography. The film's visual language, captured by renowned cinematographer Roger Deakins, is nothing short of masterful. Deakins, who has been nominated for numerous Academy Awards, used a combination of natural light, long takes, and wide shots to create a visceral sense of space. But what made the cinematography even more striking was the fact that much of it was filmed in real locations along the U.S.-Mexico border. The production team wanted the film to feel as real and gritty as the subject matter it dealt with. So, rather than relying heavily on sets, they chose to film in the actual environments where the drug wars take place. The decision to shoot in these locations not only gave the film an authenticity that would have been impossible to replicate in a studio, but it also presented significant challenges for the filmmakers. For example, shooting in the harsh desert environments meant dealing with extreme heat, unpredictable weather, and, in some cases, dangerous terrain. Yet, these challenges were embraced by the filmmakers, who saw them as integral to the immersive experience of the film. The authenticity of the locations enhanced the gritty realism, and it became a defining feature of the film's atmosphere. 2. The military consultant's role. One of the most intriguing and unusual aspects of the film's production was the involvement of military and law enforcement consultants to ensure that the portrayal of tactics, weapons, and operations was as realistic as possible. The film's portrayal of drug cartel operations and covert government operations is chillingly accurate, and much of that can be attributed to the team of experts who worked behind the scenes. One of the consultants, who had experience in special forces and intelligence operations, worked closely with director Denis Villeneuve and the actors to perfect the details of the film's tactical sequences. This included everything from the way soldiers hold their weapons to the types of vehicles used in the operations. The level of authenticity in the film is especially noticeable during scenes where the task force moves through dangerous environments, planning their ambushes with military precision. This realism, which could have easily been overlooked in other films, is a testament to the film's commitment to truth, even in the smallest of details. 3. The sound design. Another aspect of Sicario that helped set the tone and atmosphere was the sound design. The film score, composed by Johan Johansson, is haunting and minimalistic, adding to the tension and sense of dread that runs throughout the film. However, what is truly fascinating is how the sound team worked to create an almost sensory overload at times. The sound design was crafted to reflect the intensity of the situations the characters found themselves in. For example, in scenes involving the drug cartel, the filmmakers intentionally used sounds that felt intrusive or unsettling. From the whirring of helicopters to the overwhelming blasts of gunfire, The sound was designed to put the viewer on edge, much like the characters themselves. The juxtaposition of quiet, intimate moments with overwhelming, chaotic sounds heightens the tension and adds an almost visceral quality to the film. The sound team went as far as recording real gunfire and explosions to ensure that the sound was as authentic as possible, but perhaps the most unusual aspect of the sound design is the way in which silence was used to amplify tension. Some of the most tense moments in the film are marked by a near-complete absence of sound, allowing the audience to feel the weight of the silence, which can be just as unnerving as the chaos that surrounds it. This attention to detail in the sound department is what allows Sicario to feel so immediate and immersive. 4. The iconic border crossing scene. One of the most intense scenes in Sicario involves the border crossing between the United States and Mexico, a harrowing moment that perfectly captures the tension and peril that exists at the intersection of the two countries. What makes this scene even more impressive is the fact that it was filmed in a single shot. The filmmakers wanted to create an uninterrupted, long take that would allow the viewer to experience the full weight of the situation without any distractions. The result is a tense, drawn-out sequence where every passing moment heightens the tension. This sequence was not only difficult to film from a technical standpoint, but it also required the actors to remain in character for an extended period of time, which added to the intensity of the moment. The fact that this scene was filmed without cuts or breaks for dramatic effect is a testament to the skill of the entire production team. What makes this scene even more striking is the logistical challenge of shooting in such a location. To film on the actual border, the production team had to get special permissions from both U.S. and Mexican authorities. There were numerous safety concerns given the volatile nature of the region, and the production had to navigate a series of legal hurdles to shoot in such a sensitive area. In the end, the filmmakers managed to capture an unforgettable moment that not only serves the plot but also reinforces the overall themes of the film. 5. The casting of Benicio del Toro. Benicio del Toro's performance as Alejandro is one of the standout aspects of Sicario. His portrayal of a hardened, morally ambiguous character is nothing short of brilliant, and it was no accident that he was cast in the role. However, there's an interesting backstory to his involvement in the film. Del Toro was not the first choice for the role of Alejandro. Initially, the filmmakers were looking for another actor to play the part, but after seeing Del Toro's previous work, they knew he was the only actor who could bring the character to life. The actor's ability to blend vulnerability with menace made him an ideal fit for Alejandro, and his performance became a defining element of the film. Del Toro's commitment to the role extended beyond just his acting. He also worked closely with the filmmakers to ensure that Alejandro's motivations and background were fully fleshed out. One fascinating detail is that Del Toro spent considerable time learning about the complexities of the drug trade and law enforcement tactics in order to bring a layer of authenticity to his portrayal. 6. Villeneuve's direction and collaboration with screenwriter Taylor Sheridan. Denis Villeneuve, the director of Sicario, is known for his meticulous and thoughtful approach to filmmaking. He often collaborates closely with his screenwriters, and in the case of Sicario, he worked extensively with Taylor Sheridan to ensure that the film's themes were executed with precision and care. The result is a film that delves deep into the moral complexities of the war on drugs, exploring the blurry lines between good and evil. What's interesting about Villeneuve's approach to Sicario is his decision to allow the story to unfold in a slow, deliberate manner, focusing not on action but on building tension through character development and atmosphere. Villeneuve and Sheridan worked closely together to ensure that the film wasn't simply a typical thriller, but rather a thoughtful commentary on the costs of war, both physical and psychological. Villeneuve's direction created a sense of dread that permeates the entire film, drawing viewers into a world where every action has serious consequences. 7. Real-world influence. The realism of Sicario goes beyond just the settings and cinematography, it extends into the themes and the way the story was told. The filmmakers wanted the film to feel like a direct reflection of the world we live in, which meant drawing on real-life events and real-world issues. While the film is a work of fiction, it was heavily influenced by the current state of the war on drugs, especially along the U.S.-Mexico border. The filmmakers consulted with experts on the realities of the drug trade, law enforcement operations, and border politics to ensure that the film captured the complexity of the issue. This commitment to realism is one of the reasons the film resonates so deeply with audiences. It doesn't sugarcoat the brutal realities of the situation, but instead, it presents them in an unflinching, raw way. 8. The impact of the film. Sicario is not just a gripping thriller. It's a film that resonates on a deeper level because it forces us to confront difficult moral questions. The fact that the film made such an impact upon release speaks volumes about its cultural relevance. The movie speaks to larger societal issues that are not easy to tackle, and its success can be attributed to its ability to tackle such topics with grace and sensitivity, while also delivering an intense cinematic experience. From its realistic portrayal of the complexities of the war on drugs to its unforgettable performances and impeccable cinematography, Sicario stands as a testament to the art of filmmaking. The behind-the-scenes stories, from the challenges of shooting in real-world locations to the casting decisions and collaborative efforts of the director and screenwriters, contribute to the film's enduring power and relevance. Through its intricate blend of authenticity, tension, and moral complexity, Sicario has cemented its place as one of the most impactful films of its time. Sicario, 2015, quickly became a hallmark of modern filmmaking, particularly in its handling of heavy themes such as the war on drugs, morality, and the human cost of violence. Its visual intensity, masterful direction, and powerful performances captivated audiences, but it is the way the film addresses the consequences of its events, both for its characters and the audience, that truly sets it apart. Through the lens of critical analysis, the significant events of Sicario come to life not just as moments in a crime thriller, but as reflections of deeper societal issues that demand reflection. The film's impact and reception have been heavily shaped by its uncompromising stance on morality and its exploration of how violence shapes not only the world but the individuals who engage with it. The opening raid, establishing the stakes. The film's opening raid in an Arizona house, where FBI agents storm in to rescue a kidnapped girl, immediately thrusts the audience into the heart of the film's brutal world. The raid is expertly framed by director Denis Villeneuve and cinematographer Roger Deakins, whose brilliant use of light and space makes the claustrophobic atmosphere feel even more intense. From the opening sequence, we know we are about to experience a world that is far removed from conventional justice. The violence is stark, unrelenting, and raw. This raid is not just an introduction to the plot, but also a statement of the film's approach. The ugliness of the drug war is not softened for audiences. From a critical perspective, this first event sets up the film's tone, one that will refuse to sugarcoat the impact of the war on drugs. Kate Macer, Emily Blunt, the FBI agent who leads the operation, begins as an idealistic character who believes in the rule of law. However, this raid becomes a significant turning point for her, as she's thrust into a world where conventional rules no longer apply. This disillusionment is something that will shape the character's arc throughout the film. The raid immediately introduces the audience to the harsh reality of the drug trade and its effects, forcing them to question the morality of the characters involved, including the government agents themselves. This moment establishes the key conflict of the film. Can the system, which is meant to protect and enforce law, truly be effective when operating in such a morally ambiguous world? The insertion of Alejandro, the moral gray area. The film's real turning point, however, occurs when Alejandro, Benicio del Toro, a mysterious figure with ties to both law enforcement and the drug cartels, is introduced. His entry into the narrative shifts the power dynamics of the story and pushes the film into a deeper exploration of moral ambiguity. Alejandro is a character whose motivations remain unclear, but his backstory, revealed in pieces, exposes the lengths to which individuals will go when they've been broken by violence. His personal vendetta against the cartels and his willingness to use extreme tactics to achieve his goals highlight the ethical dilemma central to Sicario. A critical analysis of Alejandro's character reveals one of the film's core themes: the fragility of moral certainty. Alejandro represents the breakdown of conventional morality. He is a man who, having lost everything to the cartels, operates in a world where the rules of engagement are bent to suit personal goals. His actions, including brutal assassinations and manipulations, challenge Kate's belief in the goodness of law enforcement and the system. His presence in the story forces both Kate and the audience to ask difficult questions. Are there times when the ends justify the means? Is revenge ever truly justified, or does it simply perpetuate an endless cycle of violence? From an emotional standpoint, Alejandro's introduction is chilling. He is enigmatic and unpredictable, making him a formidable presence on screen. His cold, calculating demeanor serves as a contrast to the more idealistic Kate. In this way, Alejandro becomes not just a catalyst for the plot but also a character who embodies the thematic conflicts at the heart of Sicario. The film subtly asks whether the audience is willing to accept his worldview, given the atrocities he's witnessed, or whether his tactics, no matter how effective, are a bridge too far. The border crossing, a chilling representation of the divide. One of the film's most intense and pivotal moments occurs when Kate's team crosses the U.S.-Mexico border to execute a covert operation. The sequence, which spans multiple scenes and ends in a tense face-off between the American and Mexican forces, is more than just an action set-piece. From a critical viewpoint, it represents the psychological and physical borders that separate the two countries, borders that are not just geographic, but moral and political as well. The decision to include this event as a long, unbroken shot, a sequence designed to draw the audience into the claustrophobic reality of the situation, was a genius move by Villeneuve. As the soldiers and FBI agents slowly drive across the border, the tension escalates. The longer the camera lingers, the more the viewer feels the discomfort of the moment. The border crossing scene works not only as a high-stakes action sequence but also as a visual metaphor for the blurred lines between right and wrong in the world of Sicario. The further Kate travels into this morally gray world, the less sure she becomes of her own place in it. This event is pivotal because it lays bare the larger theme of the film. The war on drugs is not simply a battle against criminals but a confrontation with the moral decay that permeates all levels of society. The agents who cross the border do so not just physically, but symbolically, stepping into a world where the law becomes malleable and the line between justice and vengeance is increasingly difficult to discern. The ambush, a shocking turn of events. One of the film's most shocking moments occurs during a climactic ambush in the film's second act. After a tense standoff on the border, Alejandro and his team are ambushed by the cartels in a violent confrontation that escalates quickly. The ambush, an unexpected turn of events, forces both the characters and the audience to confront the unpredictability of the world they inhabit. What makes this event so gripping from a critical perspective is how it subverts the audience's expectations. Until this moment, Alejandro is portrayed as a man who can control the situation, using his experience and ruthlessness to his advantage. But when the ambush occurs, it becomes clear that even the most prepared individuals can be caught off guard. This event, like many others in Sicario, serves to reinforce the film's central idea. The war on drugs is chaotic and unpredictable. The agents and soldiers involved, no matter their experience or training, are not immune to the violence that surrounds them. The ambush pushes the film's exploration of power, vulnerability, and the high price of warfare to the forefront. Kate is once again forced to reckon with her involvement in an operation that seems increasingly disconnected from the values she holds dear. The ambush serves as a reminder that, in this world, no one is truly safe, and everyone, whether a cartel member or a law enforcement officer, pays a price for their choices. The final showdown, a tragic resolution. The final confrontation between Kate and Alejandro is a culmination of the moral and emotional conflicts that have been building throughout the film. It is in this moment that the film reaches its emotional and thematic zenith. Kate, now completely disillusioned with the system she once believed in, is faced with a final moral test. In a tense and ultimately tragic confrontation, Alejandro reveals the full extent of his personal vendetta and his willingness to go to any lengths to exact his revenge. From a critical perspective, this scene can be seen as the film's starkest commentary on the human cost of the drug war. Alejandro's actions, while deeply personal, have ripple effects that extend far beyond his own life. The emotional resonance of the final showdown is amplified by the performances of both Emily Blunt and Benicio del Toro. Their characters, once seemingly on opposite sides, are now locked in a tragic dance, each grappling with their own demons and the irreconcilable differences between their worldviews. The film ends on a note of ambiguity, with Kate left to confront the harsh reality of the world she has entered. There is no tidy resolution, no easy answers to the questions raised throughout the film. Instead, Sicario challenges the audience to face the uncomfortable truth that, in the war on drugs, everyone loses. The moral ambiguity and emotional weight of the final moments resonate deeply, leaving viewers to ponder the true cost of the violence depicted on screen. Impact and reception. Sicario is a film that has sparked intense discussion and critical acclaim since its release. Its unflinching portrayal of the drug trade, its exploration of moral ambiguity, and its intense, character-driven storytelling have made it a standout in the genre. The film's impact can be measured not only by its critical success but also by the way it resonates with audiences. In a world where the consequences of the drug war are all too real, Sicario serves as a sobering reminder of the complexities of justice, morality, and the human experience. By the end of the film, audiences are left with more questions than answers. Sicario is not a film that offers clear-cut heroes or villains, and it refuses to offer simple solutions to the problems it presents. Instead, it challenges its audience to confront the complexities of the world it depicts and to consider the cost of the decisions made by those in power. The making of Sicario, 2015, was as intense and gripping as the film itself. Behind every explosive moment and tense standoff, there's a long process of planning, collaboration, and improvisation that contributed to its success. Directed by Denis Villeneuve, Sicario stands out not only for its high-stakes narrative but also for its brilliant filmmaking techniques and the production decisions that made it a modern classic. From choosing the right locations to the careful crafting of sound design and cinematography, the behind-the-scenes details of Sicario reveal a level of artistry and precision that would shape its reception as one of the standout films of the decade. Denis Villeneuve's direction of Sicario was instrumental in creating a film that felt not just like a crime thriller, but like an emotional journey through the labyrinthine world of the drug trade. Villeneuve, known for his cerebral approach to filmmaking, was determined to make a movie that would both entertain and make audiences think about the deeper implications of the drug war. One of the key decisions that Villeneuve made early in the production process was to keep the focus on the emotional and moral journeys of the characters rather than the action or violence of the plot. While the film certainly has moments of intense action, Villeneuve's direction always brings the focus back to the internal struggles of his characters, particularly the character of Kate Macer, played by Emily Blunt. Villeneuve's previous work, including Prisoners, 2013, had already shown his talent for creating tense, atmospheric films, and Sicario was no exception. What sets Villeneuve apart is his ability to balance complex themes with compelling storytelling. He wanted the film to be both a commentary on the larger issues surrounding the drug trade and an intimate portrait of the people caught in its crossfire. His approach was deeply influenced by his own personal experience and his drive to tell stories that explore human nature in all its shades of gray. Villeneuve's vision was clear. Sicario was not meant to provide easy answers, but rather to immerse the audience in a world that was morally complex and unforgiving. The cinematography of Roger Deakins. One of the standout features of Sicario is its cinematography, which was handled by the legendary Roger Deakins. Deakins, who had previously worked with Villeneuve on Prisoners, was an essential part of creating the film's tense, atmospheric look. Known for his ability to convey mood and tone through light and shadow, Deakins's work on Sicario is nothing short of spectacular. His meticulous attention to detail and use of wide-angle shots makes the film feel like a visceral experience. From the very first moments of the film, Deakins sets the stage for what will become an unsettling and tense atmosphere. The opening raid scene, where the FBI storm a house, is framed with an unrelenting sense of claustrophobia. The harsh lighting and the close-quarters action make the sequence feel immediate, as though the viewer is right there with the agents. As the film progresses, Deakins uses wide landscape shots to emphasize the vastness of the world that Kate is stepping into, one where the law seems small and insignificant compared to the forces at play. One of the most famous sequences in the film is the border crossing scene, which Deakins shot with a long, unbroken take. This decision was a masterstroke in creating tension and showing the psychological toll of crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. The cinematography in this scene emphasizes not only the physical space but also the emotional distance that Kate feels as she is drawn further into the morally ambiguous world of the drug trade. Deakins' ability to use the camera as a way of telling the story visually is one of the reasons Sicario is so powerful. The use of real locations. Shooting Sicario in real locations added an undeniable level of authenticity to the film. Many of the scenes in the movie were filmed in actual locations along the U.S.-Mexico border, including the desert landscape that defines much of the film's setting. The decision to use real locations was not only a way to create a more believable environment but also an important part of Villeneuve's vision for the film. He wanted to immerse the audience in the stark reality of the situation, where the landscape itself becomes a character. Vast, oppressive, and unforgiving. One of the most memorable locations in Sicario is the border crossing scene, where the film shifts from the familiar confines of law enforcement operations to the dangerous and volatile world of the cartels. The production team made sure to film in real locations along the border, capturing the true sense of the area's tensions. The backdrop of the desert, with its harsh terrain and sprawling emptiness, serves as a metaphor for the overwhelming and isolating nature of the drug trade. Filming in these locations also presented challenges for the production crew. The hot desert climate and the logistical difficulties of filming on both sides of the border forced the crew to adapt and be creative. At times, filming had to be done under strict conditions to ensure the safety of the cast and crew, as the region was known for its potential dangers. Despite these challenges, the decision to shoot in real locations lent an authenticity to the film that would have been impossible to replicate on a soundstage. Sound design and the score. The sound design of Sicario plays a crucial role in building tension and immersing the audience in its world. Composer Johan Johansson, who collaborated with Villeneuve on Prisoners, crafted a haunting and atmospheric score that amplifies the emotional intensity of the film. The score itself is minimalist and ominous, with slow, resonant notes that build an unsettling atmosphere. The music often lingers in the background, subtly amplifying the emotions of the characters and the gravity of the situation. What is most remarkable about the sound design in Sicario is how it complements the film's visual storytelling. The film is filled with moments of silence, where the absence of music or sound amplifies the tension. In the opening raid sequence, for instance, the silence of the desert contrasts with the chaos of the violence unfolding on screen. The sound design here is sparse but deliberate, with gunshots and heavy breathing becoming amplified, making the viewer feel the weight of every shot fired. One of the most striking uses of sound comes in the film's final moments, when the score swells to a crescendo, echoing the moral weight of the decisions made throughout the film. The sound is deliberately overwhelming in these moments, much like the chaos that Kate feels inside as she faces the consequences of her involvement in a world that is morally ambiguous at best. The actors and their immersive preparation. For the actors involved in Sicario, the preparation for their roles was equally intense. Emily Blunt, who played the idealistic FBI agent Kate Macer, underwent extensive training to make her performance as authentic as possible. Blunt, known for her versatility, approached her character with a level of commitment that would translate to the on-screen portrayal of a woman torn between her sense of justice and the harsh reality of the drug war. To prepare for her role, Blunt participated in military training exercises and spent time with real-life FBI agents to understand the mindset of law enforcement officers working on the front lines of the war on drugs. She also studied the psychological effects of trauma, which helped her understand Kate's emotional journey. Benicio del Toro, who played the mysterious and morally ambiguous Alejandro, also immersed himself in his character. Del Toro's portrayal of Alejandro is one of the most haunting in the film. His stoic demeanor and coldness conceal a deep emotional pain, and Del Toro worked to make sure his character was not just a plot device but a man whose actions had real, visceral consequences. Del Toro's portrayal of Alejandro as a man broken by his past is one of the most powerful elements of Sicario and a testament to his methodical preparation. Josh Brolin, who played the laid-back but calculating CIA operative Matt Graver, brought a different energy to the film. His character serves as a foil to Kate's idealism, representing the morally gray area that the film seeks to explore. Brolin's portrayal of Matt adds another layer of complexity to the film, as he plays a character who is both charming and deeply disillusioned by the nature of his work. The challenges of filming in the desert. Filming Sicario in the desert landscape posed numerous challenges for the crew, from extreme weather conditions to logistical hurdles. The team had to work under the harsh desert sun, which created not only difficult conditions for the cast and crew but also technical difficulties. Camera gear could overheat, and the sand and dust were constant threats to both equipment and the crew's health. One of the challenges involved shooting the border crossing sequence, which required precise coordination and timing to capture the tension of the moment. The long, unbroken shot that Deakins used required perfect synchronization between the actors, the camera, and the sound design to create the heightened sense of dread. This level of technical precision is what makes the film's cinematography so immersive and gripping. Despite the challenges, the crew's dedication and attention to detail paid off. Every frame of Sicario feels carefully composed, and the harsh desert environment contributes significantly to the film's atmosphere. It's clear that the setting is not just a backdrop for the action but a crucial part of the story itself. Interesting production facts. The production of Sicario was marked by a series of fascinating anecdotes and fun facts that reflect the dedication of the entire cast and crew. One interesting tidbit is that the film's final shootout scene was filmed with a live helicopter, rather than relying on CGI. This decision was made to maintain the film's gritty realism and to capture the intensity of the moment in a way that would resonate with the audience. Another fun fact is that while much of the film takes place in the harsh deserts of Arizona and Mexico, a significant portion of the film was actually shot in Calgary, Canada. This was primarily due to budget constraints and the difficulty of filming in the remote desert areas, but the crew worked hard to make the locations look as authentic as possible. The mountainous terrain of Calgary was used to simulate the desert regions of the U.S.-Mexico border, and the production team was able to use clever cinematography and set design to achieve the illusion of the film's arid landscape. In the end, the production of Sicario was a true collaborative effort that involved careful planning, attention to detail, and a commitment to authenticity. The result was a film that not only captivated audiences but also raised the bar for crime thrillers and action films alike. The setting and cinematic elements in Sicario, 2015, are as integral to the film's gripping atmosphere as the characters themselves. From the desolate, sun-scorched deserts of the U.S.-Mexico border to the claustrophobic urban environments of the city, every location is carefully chosen to reinforce the story's themes of violence, moral ambiguity, and the cost of justice. Cinematographer Roger Deakins, along with director Denis Villeneuve, crafted a visual style that makes every frame pulse with tension. Together, they created a world where the landscape itself is as much a character as the men and women navigating it. The film's physical settings are far from just backdrops. They are dynamic spaces that push the story forward, enhance its themes, and act as visual metaphors for the psychological states of the characters. From wide sweeping shots of barren deserts to the tight, claustrophobic shots of military operation rooms, the locations and cinematography underscore the stark contrasts between the characters' internal and external worlds. Every scene in Sicario feels suffused with a sense of isolation, danger, and unease. The desolate borderlands, a stark symbol of conflict. One of the most prominent features of Sicario is its setting along the U.S.-Mexico border, a region that is both physically barren and politically charged. The desert landscape that stretches across the borderlands is not only a backdrop but also a representation of the harshness and hopelessness embedded in the war on drugs. The vast, empty stretches of land devoid of life become a metaphor for the emotional and moral voids that the characters navigate. It is an unforgiving, hostile environment where survival is paramount, and the law is just a distant abstraction. Villeneuve and Deakins took great care to use the landscape to build a sense of dread and tension. The wide-angle shots of the desert often emphasize how small and insignificant the characters are in comparison to the environment they're fighting against. The film uses the desolate emptiness of the land to mirror the inner desolation that its protagonist, Kate Macer, feels as she begins to lose her sense of right and wrong. The sweeping vistas of the desert reflect the overwhelming magnitude of the drug war, a conflict that seems as endless as the landscape itself. A standout moment comes during the border crossing sequence, a scene shot with a long, unbroken take that exemplifies the power of the setting in Sicario. As Kate's team crosses from the United States into Mexico, the camera holds steady, showing the vast, desolate terrain surrounding the convoy. The stark, sun-drenched landscape seems to stretch on forever, emphasizing the isolation and danger lurking just beyond the frame. This visual choice not only builds tension but also deepens the film's exploration of Kate's internal conflict. She is not just crossing a physical border, she's crossing into a moral and ethical gray zone where the rules she once believed in no longer seem to apply. The desert itself is an extension of the violence and conflict that permeates the story. It is a harsh and unforgiving place, much like the war on drugs that the film depicts. The barren land, while visually stunning, speaks to the vastness and futility of the battle Kate is about to become involved in. The sprawling desert serves as a constant reminder of the physical and moral distance between the forces at play in the drug war. The urban landscape, intensity and intimacy. While the borderlands provide the film's overarching setting, Sicario also takes us into urban environments where the stakes of the drug war are more immediately palpable. These cities are portrayed with a sense of claustrophobia that contrasts sharply with the openness of the desert. The urban settings serve to heighten the tension and amplify the risks that come with the characters' decisions. In the opening sequence, the film takes us into the heart of Arizona, where a tense FBI operation unfolds. The setting here is cramped and tightly controlled, reflecting the way Kate and her team are boxed in by the constraints of the law. The narrow hallways, close-quarters action, and suffocating environment create a feeling of being trapped. This tightness is juxtaposed with the vast, open spaces of the desert that the film will later explore. In this sense, the urban spaces serve as an emotional precursor to the larger moral battles Kate will face in the desert. The film's depiction of Juarez, Mexico, is equally intense and immersive. Villeneuve and Deakins made sure to show the raw and dangerous side of the city, emphasizing the corruption and lawlessness that have taken root there. Juarez is portrayed as a city on the edge, its streets filled with tension and constant threat. The use of shadows and light in these scenes is especially striking, often casting long, menacing shadows that enhance the feeling of danger. The use of darkness in these shots reflects the moral darkness that pervades the world of the drug trade, a world where individuals are often forced to make impossible decisions. The visual representation of these urban environments is not only about creating a sense of place but also about capturing the emotional isolation that the characters experience. As Kate becomes more immersed in the operations of the CIA and the drug cartels, she finds herself disconnected from the world she once knew, both geographically and emotionally. The urban environments in Sicario serve as a reminder of how far she has moved from the simple notion of right and wrong. The military and tactical elements, creating tension and realism. Sicario's use of military settings and tactical operations is another element that heightens the film's sense of realism and urgency. The film frequently shifts between high-stakes action sequences and moments of psychological tension, using military settings to ground the film in a sense of realism while also amplifying the moral stakes of the characters' actions. The operation rooms, command centers, and military vehicles in Sicario are portrayed with a level of detail and accuracy that adds to the film's authenticity. These locations are often sterile and cold, representing the bureaucratic and impersonal nature of the war on drugs. The sterile, lifeless environments of the CIA operations rooms contrast sharply with the violence unfolding outside, creating a dissonance that underscores the moral dilemmas the characters face. The world of the drug war is not just dangerous, it is also impersonal and dehumanizing. One of the most memorable sequences in Sicario occurs during a nighttime convoy mission in the middle of the desert, where the team is tasked with taking down cartel members. The cinematography here heightens the sense of tension and dread, using stark lighting to cast long shadows over the military vehicles and the soldiers. The use of darkness not only makes the environment feel more dangerous but also emphasizes the characters' vulnerability, showing how they are out of their depth in a world where the rules of engagement are not clear. The tactical nature of these scenes, the careful planning, the strategies, the precise use of weaponry, also speaks to the film's central theme of the blurred lines between good and evil. In the chaos of these missions, the characters are forced to make split-second decisions, and the outcome often hinges on factors beyond their control. The sense of strategy and military precision heightens the stakes, making it clear that the battle is not just for survival but for moral clarity. The cinematic influence of the Western genre. Sicario draws heavily on the visual language of the Western genre, using wide shots, rugged landscapes, and morally complex characters to convey its story. The film's desert settings, in particular, are reminiscent of the American Western, where lawmen often face off against criminals in vast, open landscapes. The Western genre's tradition of portraying lawmen as solitary figures confronting the lawless wilderness finds its echoes in Sicario through the character of Kate Macer. Her journey from a law-abiding FBI agent to a participant in morally questionable operations mirrors the trajectory of the Western hero, who is often forced to confront the darkness in both the world and within themselves. Cinematically, Sicario incorporates elements of the Western's iconic visual style, such as the use of wide, sweeping shots of the desert. These shots emphasize the isolation of the characters, particularly Kate, as they grapple with the larger-than-life forces of lawlessness and violence. The desolate landscape in Sicario is not unlike the barren frontier of classic westerns, and Villeneuve and Deakins use this setting to evoke the same kind of existential struggles that are often central to Western stories. The film's use of slow, lingering shots in the desert also evokes the tension and solitude that often accompany Western narratives. In these moments, the characters are not just battling external forces but also wrestling with their own sense of morality and identity. The visual style of Sicario channels the Western genre's exploration of justice and vengeance, while subverting its traditional notions of heroism and lawfulness. The cinematic language of tension. A key part of what makes Sicario so compelling is its ability to create tension through its use of cinematography. The film frequently employs long takes, slow pans, and careful framing to allow the viewer to experience the tension of each moment. The camera often lingers on small details, a hand gripping a weapon, a face filled with uncertainty, a distant figure in the horizon, adding layers of anticipation to every scene. The slow, deliberate pacing allows the audience to feel the weight of each decision, while also heightening the sense of unease. Roger Deakins's cinematography is instrumental in conveying the film's sense of psychological tension. Through his lens, the landscape becomes an extension of the character's inner turmoil. The barren desert, the narrow streets of Juarez, and the sterile operations rooms are all imbued with a sense of foreboding that matches the film's thematic concerns. The camera becomes a silent observer of the characters' struggles, capturing both the physical and emotional landscapes they traverse. The deliberate pacing and carefully crafted visuals in Sicario make every action feel consequential. Whether it's a high-speed chase through Behind the Making of Sicario, 2015, a gripping thriller that delves deep into the moral and ethical complexities of the drug war, lies a story filled with fascinating behind-the-scenes moments, challenges, and camaraderie among the cast and crew. This journey from script to screen was not without its hurdles, but the final product showcases the dedication and hard work of everyone involved, all driven by a common desire to tell a compelling story. The intricate design of the film's world. Director Denis Villeneuve, known for his thoughtful and often cerebral approach to filmmaking, faced an exciting challenge with Sicario: how to bring a story about the American drug war to life while staying grounded in realism and raw emotion. From the outset, Villeneuve was committed to creating a film that would place the audience directly in the middle of the action, making them feel as though they were not merely spectators, but participants in the harrowing world of violence, politics, and moral ambiguity. One of the more fascinating aspects of the production was how the film's world was designed to feel gritty and authentic. In particular, the visual language of Sicario was deeply influenced by the film's cinematographer, Roger Deakins. Known for his legendary work on films like No Country for Old Men, 2007, and Skyfall, 2012, Deakins had a unique vision for how to capture the brutal beauty of the desert landscapes and the claustrophobic, tense scenes that would unfold in the cities. Together with Villeneuve, Deakins embraced the challenge of portraying the world through a minimalist, often subtle, lens that would underscore the film's tension without overwhelming the audience. This vision extended to the set design and production design, which were crucial in helping to build a world that felt authentic to the story's setting. From the military convoys to the dimly lit rooms filled with tactical equipment, every detail was meticulously crafted. The team worked hard to ensure that the look of the film mirrored its themes: raw, unforgiving, and complex. The contrast between the barren landscapes of the desert and the dense, tense environments of the cities was not just about aesthetics. It was a way to reflect the personal and moral conflict faced by the characters. Immersive filming locations. The heart of the story. One of the most compelling aspects of Sicario is its stark and immersive locations. To truly capture the essence of the U.S.-Mexico border region, the filmmakers ventured to real locations that would give the film an undeniable sense of authenticity. Much of the film was shot on location in Mexico, where the crew had to navigate the logistics and challenges of working in a region that was rife with danger, tension, and a palpable sense of instability. Filming in Mexico was no easy task, and the team faced logistical hurdles that many films wouldn't have encountered. The remote locations chosen for certain sequences were sometimes difficult to access due to their proximity to real cartel territories. At times, the crew had to work under strict security to ensure their safety. The decision to film on location rather than using sets or green screen technology paid off in spades, though. It gave the film an air of authenticity and ensured that the film's depiction of the drug trade, the borderlands, and the people living there felt genuine. Despite the challenges, the crew took pride in working on such a high-stakes, emotionally charged film. As it turns out, the demanding conditions of filming in these locations led to some of the most rewarding behind-the-scenes stories, filled with teamwork and a shared understanding of the importance of the story they were telling. The complexities of filming intense action sequences. In Sicario, the action is not merely about explosions or fast-paced chases. It's about tension, uncertainty, and the ever-present threat of danger. Villeneuve and his team knew that they would need to approach the action sequences with precision and care. The result was a film that not only had high-octane moments but also conveyed a deep sense of foreboding. One of the most intense and unforgettable sequences in the film is the border crossing scene, where a military convoy passes through the highly contested border between the United States and Mexico. The long, unbroken shot that follows the convoy as it navigates the tense crossing was a logistical nightmare for the crew. The filmmakers needed to ensure that the convoy's journey was captured in a seamless, suspenseful manner. To achieve this, they had to carefully coordinate the movement of the vehicles, the timing of the action, and the placement of the camera to make sure that each element worked perfectly within the scene. The team also used helicopters to film some of the more intense action sequences, which added a layer of realism to the chaotic nature of the border operations. However, the use of helicopters posed its own set of challenges. The sound of the helicopters could drown out the dialogue or disrupt the sound design, so the crew had to make sure that the noise was integrated into the scene without losing clarity. It took a lot of coordination between the camera crew, sound team, and the director to execute these high-stakes moments without losing the immersive atmosphere of the film. In addition to the action sequences, the film also involved a great deal of tactical planning. The filmmakers consulted with military advisors and experts in law enforcement to ensure that the film's portrayal of operations was realistic. This included working with a special effects team to create realistic explosions, gunfire, and other visual elements that would make the action feel visceral and impactful. The cast, real emotions and commitment to the story. While the film's technical achievements are impressive, it's the performances that bring Sicario to life. The cast was led by Emily Blunt, who portrayed Kate Macer, a dedicated FBI agent thrust into the chaos of the drug war. Blunt's portrayal of Kate, a character who begins the film with a strong moral compass but is gradually disillusioned by the realities of the operations she's involved in, was one of the film's most praised aspects. What many people don't know is that Emily Blunt was deeply invested in making sure that her performance felt as authentic as possible. To better understand the mindset of her character, Blunt spent time with real law enforcement officers and military personnel, learning about the emotional and psychological toll of working in high-stakes, dangerous environments. She also trained with weapons and participated in ride-alongs to gain a sense of what it was like to be on the front lines of such intense operations. Her commitment to the role helped her portray Kate as a complex, conflicted character who is both vulnerable and strong. Blunt's co-stars, Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin, brought a different energy to the set. Del Toro's portrayal of Alejandro, a former cartel member turned operative, was a masterclass in subtlety and intensity. His character is both a source of mystery and a catalyst for the film's most dramatic twists. Del Toro immersed himself in the role, drawing on his own experiences and understanding of the complexities of moral ambiguity. He worked closely with Villeneuve to bring Alejandro to life as someone who is not simply a villain or hero, but a tragic figure caught in the crossfire of a corrupt and violent system. Brolin, on the other hand, played the role of Matt Graver, a CIA operative whose relaxed demeanor masks a ruthlessness and a willingness to push moral boundaries in pursuit of the greater good. Brolin's portrayal of Matt brought a level of charm and humor to the film, balancing out the darker elements of the story. His on-screen chemistry with Blunt helped anchor the emotional core of the film, as their characters' differing worldviews clashed throughout the narrative. Overcoming challenges. The film's uncompromising vision. Filming Sicario wasn't without its challenges. In addition to the complex action sequences and the difficulties of shooting in dangerous or remote locations, the team faced the ever-present challenge of balancing realism with artistic vision. The filmmakers knew they had to depict a brutal world while keeping the audience emotionally invested in the characters' journeys. It wasn't enough to show the violence of the drug trade. They had to make the audience feel the personal stakes. One of the biggest hurdles was the film's tone. Sicario walks a fine line between action thriller and philosophical meditation on the cost of justice. Villeneuve and the team worked tirelessly to make sure the film maintained its pacing while allowing for moments of introspection and moral inquiry. They wanted to make sure the film didn't become overly sensationalized, but rather stayed true to the emotional and political complexities of the story. The filmmakers also had to navigate the difficult political terrain of depicting the drug war. Mexico's drug cartels and the U.S. government's involvement are sensitive subjects, and the filmmakers were conscious of portraying them in a balanced, respectful way. The team consulted with experts and used their knowledge to guide the film's portrayal of both sides of the conflict. At the same time, they didn't shy away from showing the moral compromises and the human costs of the war on drugs. Conclusion: a film born from challenges. Behind the making of Sicario lies a story of perseverance, collaboration, and creative dedication. From the intense action sequences to the careful crafting of every location and character, every element was designed to immerse the audience in a world of moral uncertainty and brutal realism. While the journey was fraught with challenges, from shooting in dangerous locations to balancing artistic vision with the film's intense subject matter, the result is a movie that leaves a lasting impression. The passion and determination of the cast and crew are evident in every frame, and their commitment to telling a powerful and timely story shines through in the final product. Through their hard work, Sicario became more than just a thriller. It became a searing examination of the human cost of violence, corruption, and the pursuit of justice. Sicario, 2015, is a film that explores a multitude of themes, ranging from the morality of justice to the brutal realities of the war on drugs. It does not shy away from showing the complexities of the world it depicts, making the audience question what is right and what is wrong. The film's themes are deeply intertwined with its characters, plot, and visual language, creating an intricate web that pulls the viewer deeper into the moral quagmire at the heart of the narrative. At its core, Sicario is about the murky line between good and evil, right and wrong, in a world where those boundaries are often blurred. The film invites the viewer to question the consequences of actions, particularly in situations that call for extreme measures. The characters in the film, especially the protagonist Kate Macer, Emily Blunt, find themselves at odds with this moral uncertainty as they navigate a landscape filled with violence, corruption, and political maneuvering. As they are exposed to the harsh realities of the drug trade and the U.S.-Mexico border conflict, they must grapple with their own beliefs and values. The war on drugs, an unwinnable battle. One of the most prominent themes in Sicario is the idea of the war on drugs as an unwinnable battle. Throughout the film, there is a sense of futility in the characters' efforts, as they are constantly confronted with the question of whether their actions, no matter how extreme or well-intentioned, will make a meaningful difference in the larger war against the cartels. This theme is central to the movie's portrayal of the complex and contradictory forces at play in the drug trade. Kate Macer, an idealistic FBI agent, initially believes that she can make a difference in the fight against the cartels. However, as the story unfolds, she is gradually pulled deeper into a world where the rules of engagement are far more morally ambiguous than she could have ever imagined. The operations she is involved in, while well-intentioned, often end up causing collateral damage, whether it's the lives of innocent civilians or the moral compromises made by those involved in the mission. As Kate becomes more deeply entrenched in the operation, her belief in the system that she serves is gradually eroded, revealing the bleak reality of a war that has no clear winner. In contrast to Kate's evolving sense of disillusionment, the character of Alejandro, Benicio del Toro, embodies the idea that the drug war is a conflict with no end in sight, and that violence and retribution are necessary to survive within it. His quest for vengeance against the cartel that killed his family represents a personal embodiment of the larger, cyclical violence of the drug trade, where vengeance begets more violence in an unending loop. Alejandro's character ultimately acts as a reminder that, in this world, the lines between right and wrong are not always as clear-cut as they may seem. Morality and justice, the high cost of righteousness. The film also delves into the complexities of morality and justice. In Sicario, characters are forced to make difficult decisions in situations where the right choice is not always clear. The film's portrayal of morality is not black and white, but rather a shifting gray area where the characters must constantly question their own motivations and beliefs. One of the most significant moral dilemmas in the film revolves around the actions of Matt Graver, Josh Brolin, and his approach to fighting the cartels. As a CIA operative, Matt is willing to engage in morally questionable tactics to achieve his goal of dismantling the drug trade. This includes extrajudicial killings, secretive operations, and deceptive tactics. His willingness to break the rules is contrasted with Kate's more traditional sense of justice, which focuses on due process and upholding the law. Throughout the film, Kate is faced with increasingly difficult choices that force her to confront her own ideas about justice, particularly when she realizes that her actions may be contributing to the very corruption and violence she is fighting against. Alejandro's character also serves as an embodiment of this theme. His pursuit of justice is deeply personal, driven by a desire for revenge against those who destroyed his family. However, his quest for vengeance is not without moral cost. As he operates outside the law, using violence and manipulation to achieve his goals, Alejandro becomes a figure that challenges the viewer's perception of justice. His sense of justice is based on personal loss and the belief that the end justifies the means. The film suggests that in a world as corrupt and lawless as the one depicted in Sicario, sometimes justice must be carried out through extreme measures, even if that means crossing moral lines. Corruption, the system as the enemy. Another key theme in Sicario is the pervasive corruption that runs through every level of the system. The film paints a bleak picture of both the Mexican government and U.S. agencies, revealing that the institutions meant to uphold justice are often as corrupted as the cartels themselves. This theme is most clearly illustrated through the characters of Matt Graver and Alejandro, who, although ostensibly fighting for justice, operate within a system that is riddled with corruption and moral compromises. Matt, the CIA agent, represents the institutional corruption within the U.S. government. He is willing to bend or even break the law to achieve his goals, often using deception, manipulation, and covert operations that are morally questionable. His belief in the need to fight fire with fire leads him to adopt methods that are no better than the cartels he is fighting. This, in turn, challenges Kate's idealistic view of justice. As the film progresses, Kate realizes that the system she works for, which she once believed was a force for good, is in fact deeply compromised, using the same methods as the criminals it aims to eliminate. Alejandro's actions also speak to this theme of systemic corruption. His personal vendetta against the cartel has led him to become a part of the corrupt system he once sought to destroy. As a former cartel lawyer turned government operative, he is a man caught between two worlds, the lawless world of the cartels and the morally questionable world of the government. Alejandro's willingness to use corrupt means to achieve his goals reflects the idea that, in a world where institutions are compromised, individuals must operate outside the law to achieve any sense of justice. The border, a symbol of division. The physical setting of the U.S.-Mexico border is another powerful symbol in Sicario. The border represents the division between two worlds, the safety and security of the United States and the lawlessness and danger of Mexico. It is a liminal space, a threshold between two vastly different realities, and the characters in the film must constantly navigate its complexities. For Kate, the border is a symbol of her own personal conflict. As she crosses it during her mission, she is forced to confront not only the violence and corruption that exists on the other side, but also her own complicity in the larger system that perpetuates this violence. The border is also a place where the moral and ethical lines are blurred. While it is often portrayed as a place of violence and danger, it is also a place where characters are forced to confront their own values and beliefs. Kate's journey across the border becomes symbolic of her internal struggle, as she grapples with the idea of whether she can continue to uphold her sense of justice in a world that operates by its own set of rules. The film uses the border to highlight the separation between idealism and reality, with Kate's innocence being gradually eroded as she is exposed to the darker truths of the world she is operating in. The use of color and cinematography, visual symbolism. The film's cinematography also plays a crucial role in conveying its themes and symbolism. Roger Deakins, the legendary cinematographer, uses color and composition to create a visual language that mirrors the film's moral and emotional tone. The dusty, desolate landscapes of the borderlands are shot in muted, earthy tones, reinforcing the sense of emptiness and hopelessness that pervades the film. The stark contrasts between light and shadow emphasize the moral ambiguity of the characters and the world they inhabit. In particular, the film's use of night scenes and shadows creates a sense of fear and uncertainty. Many of the film's most important moments unfold in the dark, symbolizing the hidden and dangerous nature of the world the characters are navigating. The film's visual style complements its themes of corruption, violence, and moral compromise, with the cinematography often acting as a reflection of the inner turmoil and conflict experienced by the characters. Conclusion: a story of moral complexity and uncertainty. Sicario is a film that demands its audience to confront difficult questions about morality, justice, and the human cost of the war on drugs. Through its intricate plot, complex characters, and powerful symbolism, the film explores themes that are as relevant today as they were when it was made. The blurred lines between good and evil, the complexities of justice, and the overwhelming presence of corruption make Sicario a haunting and thought-provoking film. The film's symbolism, from the border to the use of color and cinematography, further deepens its exploration of these themes, adding layers of meaning to a story that is as much about the characters' internal struggles as it is about the external conflicts they face. Sicario ultimately presents a world where morality is constantly in flux, and the pursuit of justice comes at a high personal cost, leaving its audience to question the very nature of right and wrong. Sicario, 2015, directed by Denis Villeneuve, is a masterclass in filmmaking that employs a range of techniques to enhance its atmosphere and create a gripping, immersive experience for the audience. From the breathtaking cinematography of Roger Deakins to the impactful use of sound design and editing, the film's technical elements contribute significantly to its emotional and thematic resonance. This deep dive into the filmmaking techniques behind Sicario will reveal how these elements not only shape the film's tense and suspenseful tone, but also help convey its moral complexities and its exploration of the war on drugs cinematography, building tension and atmosphere. One of the standout elements of Sicario is its cinematography, which plays an integral role in shaping the mood and atmosphere of the film. Roger Deakins, one of the most respected cinematographers in the industry, brings his signature visual style to the film, using light, shadow, and color to create a sense of unease and tension that permeates the narrative. The film opens with a harrowing sequence that sets the tone for the rest of the story. A SWAT raid goes wrong, and the scene is filled with chaos, confusion, and intense violence. Deakins uses tight, handheld camera movements to capture the frantic energy of the raid, putting the audience directly in the middle of the action. The camera moves with a sense of urgency, following the characters through narrow hallways and dark spaces. The handheld shots create a sense of disorientation and immediacy, making the audience feel like they are a part of the action. The lack of steady, composed shots in these early moments also conveys the unpredictability and danger that these law enforcement officers face every day. The film's depiction of the U.S.-Mexico border is another example of how cinematography enhances the story's themes and atmosphere. The stark, desolate landscapes of the borderlands are captured with sweeping wide shots, showcasing the vast emptiness that characterizes the region. The use of expansive landscapes emphasizes the isolation of the characters, as they are caught between two worlds, one defined by the law and the other by lawlessness. Deakins also makes use of wide shots to convey the enormity of the war on drugs and the hopelessness of those trying to fight it. These sweeping shots highlight the overwhelming scale of the conflict and the futility of individual efforts in the face of such systemic violence. The color palette used throughout the film is muted and earthy, dominated by shades of brown, orange, and gray. This gives the film a grim, oppressive feeling, reflecting the moral and emotional weight of the characters' struggles. The use of natural light and shadows adds to the film's sense of realism, and the lighting often reinforces the tension between light and dark, both literally and metaphorically. In scenes set in the Mexican desert, the blinding sunlight contrasts with the darkness of the characters' inner turmoil, creating a visual representation of the moral ambiguity and conflict at the heart of the story. Deakins also uses the contrast between wide shots and tight close-ups to heighten the emotional intensity of certain scenes. In the tense moments where the characters are forced to confront the consequences of their actions, the camera often lingers on their faces, capturing the subtle shifts in their expressions. This creates an intimate connection between the audience and the characters, allowing the viewer to feel their internal struggle and confusion. These moments of emotional vulnerability are juxtaposed with the cold, impersonal violence of the external world, highlighting the conflict between personal morality and the harsh realities of the drug trade. Sound design, heightening tension and immersion. The sound design in Sicario is another crucial element that contributes to the film's tense atmosphere. The film's soundscapes are meticulously crafted to immerse the audience in the world of the characters, while also amplifying the sense of danger and uncertainty that defines the story. The film's sound is used sparingly, allowing moments of silence to speak volumes, but when it is present, it is intensely effective. One of the most striking uses of sound in the film is the way it builds tension during moments of action. During the high-octane convoy scenes, where the characters are driving through the dangerous Mexican borderlands, the sound of the engines, gunfire, and explosions is amplified to a visceral level. The loud, overwhelming sounds of battle create a sense of chaos and fear, heightening the intensity of the action. The sound of gunfire in particular is crisp and sharp, making the audience feel as though they are in the thick of the action, surrounded by violence and danger. In contrast, there are also moments of quiet that speak volumes. The sound of footsteps on gravel or the rustling of wind in the desert becomes significant in these moments, drawing attention to the desolate, empty spaces that the characters are navigating. The absence of sound during these sequences gives the viewer a chance to reflect on the isolation and moral ambiguity that the characters are experiencing. Silence also underscores the psychological tension, as the characters are forced to confront their own fears and doubts in a world that seems to have no clear answers. The sound of the helicopters during key moments also adds to the feeling of being trapped within a system that is beyond the characters' control. The constant presence of helicopters, buzzing overhead like an ever-present threat, symbolizes the looming power of the U.S. government and the militarization of the war on drugs. The sound of these helicopters is almost mechanical, devoid of humanity, underscoring the film's exploration of institutional power and its impact on individuals. The film's score, composed by Johan Johansson, complements the sound design, adding an additional layer of tension and emotional depth. The music is haunting and minimalistic, with deep, throbbing bass notes that create an unsettling atmosphere. The score often shifts between moments of subtle, ambient sounds and more intense, percussive beats, mirroring the emotional journey of the characters. The music never overwhelms the scenes but subtly builds tension, contributing to the film's sense of foreboding. Editing. pacing, and building suspense. The editing in Sicario is another key factor in how the film maintains its tension and atmosphere. The pacing is deliberate, with slow, methodical moments that allow the tension to build, followed by sudden bursts of violence that shock the viewer. The editing mirrors the unpredictable nature of the story, where quiet moments of reflection are interrupted by sudden, explosive action. This dynamic pacing keeps the audience on edge, never allowing them to fully relax, and ensuring that the stakes remain high throughout the film. One of the standout sequences in terms of editing is the convoy scene, where the characters are ambushed while traveling through a dangerous stretch of desert. The sequence is edited with a sense of urgency and precision, cutting between the characters in the convoy and the threatening presence of the cartel's forces. The editing creates a rhythm of rising tension, with each cut heightening the sense of danger as the characters try to navigate through the ambush. The quick cuts between close-ups of the characters' faces and the external threats create a sense of chaos and disorientation, while the longer shots of the convoy moving through the desert emphasize the vulnerability of the characters. In contrast, there are also moments of slow, contemplative editing that allow the audience to process the emotional weight of the film. The film often lingers on close-ups of the characters, especially Kate Macer, Emily Blunt, giving the audience a chance to feel her confusion and moral conflict. These quiet moments of introspection are interspersed with the film's more intense action scenes, creating a balance between emotional depth and visceral thrills. The use of color and composition, visual storytelling. In addition to Deacon's cinematography, the film's overall visual composition is a vital storytelling tool. Villeneuve and his team carefully craft each shot to convey meaning and to reinforce the themes of the film. The use of color is particularly important, with the warm, earthy tones of the desert landscape contrasting sharply with the cold, sterile interiors of the government buildings. The visual palette underscores the dichotomy between the two worlds represented in the film, the world of the U.S. government and law enforcement, and the lawless, dangerous world of the drug cartels. The framing of shots is also significant in how it shapes the audience's perception of the characters and their relationships. For example, in scenes where Kate is at odds with her superiors, the camera often isolates her within the frame, emphasizing her sense of alienation and vulnerability. In contrast, scenes involving the cartel members or government operatives like Matt Graver, Josh Brolin, are framed with more symmetry and balance, underscoring their control and power within the chaotic world of the drug war. In the film's final scenes, the use of visual composition and color takes on an even more significant role. As the characters face their fates, the framing of each shot conveys the moral and emotional stakes at play. The darkening of the sky, the isolation of the characters, and the oppressive sense of doom that fills the frame all contribute to the film's haunting conclusion. Box office and production insights. Sicario was released on September 18, 2015, to critical acclaim. The film had a budget of approximately $30 million, a relatively modest amount for a film with such a visually ambitious and intense story. However, it performed well at the box office, grossing over $85 million worldwide. The film's success was due in part to its ability to balance genre thrills with intellectual depth, attracting both mainstream audiences and critics alike. Despite its success, Sicario was not a conventional blockbuster. It relied more on its artistry and psychological tension than on traditional action sequences. Villeneuve's direction, combined with the technical mastery of Deakins, the score by Johansson, and the powerful performances of the cast, made Sicario a standout in the crime thriller genre. The film's success led to a sequel, Sicario, Day of the Soldado, though Villeneuve did not return to direct. Nonetheless, the impact of Sicario remains, with its filmmaking techniques serving as a benchmark for contemporary crime thrillers. In conclusion, Sicario is a prime example of how filmmaking techniques can elevate a story, adding layers of meaning, tension, and atmosphere. From its stunning cinematography to its expert sound design, pacing, and editing, every aspect of the film's technical execution contributes to its visceral impact on the viewer. These techniques help to create a world that is both morally ambiguous and emotionally charged, drawing the audience into the complex, often brutal world of the war on drugs. Ultimately, Sicario is a film that relies on its technical mastery to tell a powerful story that resonates long after the credits roll. The making of Sicario, 2015, Denis Villeneuve's intense and emotionally charged thriller, would not have been as impactful without the exceptional performances of its cast. From Emily Blunt's portrayal of a morally conflicted FBI agent to the enigmatic and dangerous figures brought to life by Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin, the actors in Sicario played a crucial role in bringing the film's complex characters and themes to life. Their performances, combined with insightful interviews and a diverse range of audience reviews, help illustrate why Sicario remains such a captivating and thought-provoking film. Emily Blunt, the moral center of the film. At the heart of Sicario is Emily Blunt's portrayal of Kate Macer, an FBI agent whose idealism is shattered by the brutal realities of the drug war. Blunt's performance has been widely praised for its depth and vulnerability. She plays Kate as a strong and determined woman, but one who becomes increasingly out of her depth as she is drawn into a covert government operation that challenges her values and beliefs. Blunt's portrayal of Kate offers the emotional core of the film, giving the audience a window into the internal conflict that drives much of the narrative. Blunt's approach to the role of Kate was rooted in her own sense of morality and the complexities of being a woman in a male-dominated profession. In interviews, Blunt has explained how she wanted to make sure her character felt authentic and grounded in reality. She said that while Kate is tough and capable, she also has a deep emotional core that makes her question the moral choices she faces. For Blunt, portraying Kate meant embracing the character's vulnerability and allowing her to experience the emotional toll of the situations she finds herself in. This delicate balance is evident in Blunt's performance, especially in scenes where Kate must come to terms with her complicity in actions that go against her moral compass. One of the standout moments of Blunt's performance comes during the film's tense convoy sequence, where her character is caught in a dangerous situation in the Mexican desert. As Kate watches the men around her take increasingly dangerous and questionable actions, Blunt's face conveys a mixture of fear, anger, and confusion. She embodies the emotional conflict of someone who believes in justice and law but finds herself swept up in an operation that is morally ambiguous. Blunt's ability to communicate Kate's internal struggle is one of the key elements that makes Sicario so compelling. In interviews, Blunt has also discussed how the film's atmosphere and Villeneuve's direction helped shape her performance. She noted how Villeneuve created an environment where the actors could react organically to the film's situations, allowing for a sense of spontaneity in their performances. Blunt's approach to the character was also informed by the film's themes of moral ambiguity and the toll of violence, which he said made her performance feel all the more raw and authentic. Benicio del Toro, the enigmatic Alejandro. Benicio del Toro's portrayal of Alejandro Gillick, a mysterious and morally ambiguous operative, is one of the most compelling aspects of Sicario. Alejandro is a character shrouded in mystery, whose true motivations and past are only revealed gradually throughout the film. Del Toro brings a quiet intensity to the role, making Alejandro both terrifying and tragic. His performance is marked by a sense of cold calculation, but also a deep, simmering rage that slowly reveals itself as the film progresses. Del Toro's performance is marked by his ability to convey a great deal with very little. Alejandro's backstory, which is revealed piece by piece, gives Del Toro the opportunity to play a character whose motivations are never fully articulated, yet whose actions speak volumes. In interviews, Del Toro has mentioned that he wanted to bring a sense of sadness and loss to Alejandro, who is driven by personal vengeance in his mission to eradicate the cartels. The subtlety with which Del Toro portrays Alejandro's inner turmoil is what makes the character so captivating. His stoic demeanor masks the pain of his past, and as the film unfolds, the audience begins to see that his coldness is a result of the emotional scars he carries. One of the film's most memorable sequences involves Alejandro confronting a drug lord in a tense standoff, where he's forced to make a series of ruthless decisions. Del Toro's ability to shift between calculating, dangerous, and vulnerable in this sequence makes it one of the most intense moments in the film. Alejandro is not simply a villain. He is a tragic figure, driven by personal loss and a desire for revenge. Del Toro's portrayal of this complexity is one of the reasons Sicario stands out as a morally nuanced thriller.